So in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make rugged rosaries. On the left here, this is an actual rugged rosary that I got from them. And on the right here, these are 3 rosaries that I made. So I'll put links in the description to all the materials I used on how to make it. And I'll go over the different knots you have to make for the rugged rosaries. So the first one is going to be this knot right here, which is called a 2-stranded diamond knot. I go over it twice in the video. The second one, I do it a little better. This knot right here and this one right here are called barrel knots. They're probably the easiest knot and most standard one to tie. And lastly, I go over this knot, which is the Celtic heart knot. But this one's pretty easy to tie if you just look at it. As you can see here, it kind of just loops around. And then the other one, you just go through it as well. But I go over those 3 knots. From there, you should be able to tie an entire rugged rosary. Alright, in this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a rosary. So here's the supplies you'll need. You'll need a pair of kitchen scissors to cut through the paracord. Additionally, you'll need a tape measure to measure out about 100 inches of paracord, 550. And then you'll also need the paracord itself, which is 550. And you notice that you singe off the ends with the lighter so you can fit it through the beads. So here's the lighter you'll need. Then last thing you'll need is the beads and the crucifix. So I broke it up by doing 6 of these silver Our Father beads, and they need to be have a hole size of about 5.7 millimeters. And then these are the black Hail Mary beads. And then I also have a Saint Benedict crucifix that I got here to attach at the start of the rosary. So to start off, you'll want to take your crucifix and one end of the paracord and start feeding the loop through the end of the crucifix. It can be difficult here. You might have to use the scissors to trim down on the edge of the paracord. Now after you get the crucifix on, you take it about to halfway to the point where you have the crucifix dangling there and then about half of the paracord on either side. Except you want to make one side a little longer because there'll be 3 decades of Hail Marys on one side and only 2 decades on the other side. So you want to have it like about halfway, but one end longer than the other. So the first knot you have to tie is this knot called the 2-stranded diamond knot. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You'll have the paracord going on either side of your middle finger. You'll start by creating this initial loop here. And then you kind of hold it together with your thumb there to make sure the loop doesn't pop away. Then you'll take this left strand and you'll go underneath the other strand, and then you'll go over, under, over. So you'll see here in a second I'll do that. So we go underneath that first strand, then we go over, under, so over, under, over. Then you pull it through all the way tight, and then after you do this, you'll tuck it underneath the other loops you got there. So this left strand should get tucked underneath. There I go, I tuck it underneath those other strands. Next thing you'll do, you take that same strand and you'll go around right on your middle finger between the paracords that come up on either side of it, pulled up through the center there. And that strand is done. Now all you do is you'll take the other strand, same thing, you'll kind of go around underneath all the other parts of the loop. Make sure you go around the other cord that comes up through between your fingers. Pull it through. Make sure it's underneath everything. Then your knot should be fully tied. So now you kind of just pull it tight. And that's how you get your 2-stranded diamond knot. And obviously this isn't in the right spot. So what you'll have to do is kind of just feed each end through it so that it's in the only a small loop for the crucifix. So you can see here I'm pulling one side of it through. You want to keep it kind of even though, because remember you want about half your paracord on either side so that you can tie the right amount of decades. One side will get 2 decades, one will get 3 decades. But if you started with about 100 inches of paracord, you should be pretty safe. So even if it's not completely perfectly distributed for the 3 decades and 2 decades, you'll have a lot of room for error. I could just continue tightening until you have a very small loop here. Alright, the next step is you take your first silver or Our Father or Pater bead, string it on, and this is the part where you have to put both strands of the paracord through it. That's why it's important that needs to be about 5.7 millimeters hole size, or else it'll be very difficult to get it through. Even this, it's kind of hard. What I do is I get it started in there, and eventually I just pull on the strand, and sometimes it pulls through, as you see right here. And you put it all the way down to the bottom, right above your two-stranded diamond knot. So this next knot that I'm going to tie is called the barrel knot. Basically, you take one strand, wrap it around the other strand, and then you kind of cross back over the other direction. 2 loops that cross back over the strand, the first initial one. I'll line them up here. Then you take the strand, you pass it through all those loops in there to get a barrel knot. And I kind of like the barrel knot because it hides the strands. It doesn't create some weird loop on the outside. It hides it all inside. Then after you pull it through, you'll tighten the knot by twisting on these loops that you have here. And after you do a couple barrel knots, you'll be able to like recover them if it doesn't tie completely right. But at the beginning, it can be frustrating. But you just keep twisting and pulling through. And I like to make sure it's very close to the original Our Father. So you'll sometimes have to pull through like you see right here, then keep twisting it through the entire knot. Then after you get it pretty close and tight, pull very hard to make sure it's fully tightened on either side. So pull hard like this side, and then you pull hard on the other side as well. Next step is putting on the 3 Hail Mary beads. So once again, they go through both strands of it. So just be careful to make sure that you don't tear up the paracord too much, because sometimes when the hole size is very small, it can fray the paracord. So you want to be very gentle with it when you feed them through. If it does fray, you can take a lighter and burn off the frayed ends of the paracord, but that's just what I do. So after the first 3 Hail Marys, we tie another barrel knot here. So you do 1 loop, and then you cross back over with the next 2 loops in the other direction. Then you take your strand, feed it through. And after you feed it through, you twist to tighten. Once again, twist and pull, keep pulling on the strand. And if you need to move it closer to the Ave beads, then you just pull that central string to move it. So after you tightened up that barrel knot, you put on another Our Father bead, putting both strands through it. And this is the last bead that'll go through both strands. And once you bring this down, we'll begin the next 2-stranded diamond knot. And this one, it should be a little more clear, has better lighting for it. So to begin the knot, you put your middle finger through both strands like beforehand. Then you take the lower strand, which is the right strand, and you make a loop here. You can see me making the loop. And you place it over the other strand. Now what you do is you take the left strand and you go underneath the right strand, like so. Then you'll go, the order here is over, under, over. And usually you pull up this middle strand so it makes it easy. So you go over, under, over. And you pull it through. And you get this good looking knot here. And then with the very same strand, you'll put it underneath the right strand again. And then you'll go around So you go underneath this one. Then you'll go around and up through the middle, but you have to make sure it goes around that strand that's between your two fingers. Or else it won't look good. So you gotta, it's going underneath that other one, and then goes around the strand that comes up between your third and fourth finger. And when you pull it through, you have to make sure that it goes underneath all the other knots. That's important. So notice how it went beneath all those other knots. Now you take your right strand, same thing. You go around the strand that comes up between your second and third finger and up through that middle portion. Now see how it's going around that strand that comes up between the fingers? And it also has to make sure this part of the knot is underneath all the other knots. So see how it's a little above, so I tuck it underneath there. Then you just pull tight from here. And then after you have this, you basically just keep adjusting, gently pulling through, maintaining the form of the knot until it's right snug up against that other Our Father bead. So this is the last knot you'll have to tie. I think it's called a Celtic heart knot, but basically it's the Y part of the rosary. So you take the two strands. So I start with the right strand. You make this little loop where it goes over on top of itself, like here. So it goes a loop around and then to the left, and then it goes over atop itself. Then you take the left strand, kind of lined up here, and then you'll take it and it'll go over the right portion of this knot. So there's the loop. Take this one, go over the right portion of the knot. Then the order is underneath this first part, over, under, over. So underneath this first little small hole. It goes over the other knot, the other strand. And then it goes underneath itself. Then it goes over the other strand again. And then just pull through, and that's the entire knot there. This one, it's pretty easy to tell. I learned this one just by looking at the knots in rugged rosaries. And then from there, you just tighten it. Make sure it's kind of flat. That's important. If you pull too hard on either side, it'll lose its flatness. But it's supposed to look pretty flat. Keep pulling it tight. Then usually when I tighten it, I hold my thumb on the middle there and pull so it keeps the form of the knot and still tightening it. That's how you get the Celtic heart knot. And basically from this point, you'll do your decades on either side using the barrel knots between the Our Father beads. And then you'll connect them between the third and second decades on either end. And this is just a simple overhand knot. This is also the place where you'll attach any medals if you have any of favorite saints. So it's just a simple overhand knot, a loop, and going through the simple loop. Now I start with just doing 10 Hail Marys either side of this. Make sure it's about evenly spaced. Sometimes the overhand knots aren't evenly spaced and it'll make it look weird on the rosary. But try and make sure they're about even. See how I'm pairing them up, making sure they're about even. Then from here you can go on to simple, just strand on the 10 Hail Marys, barrel knot, Our Father, barrel knot, 10 more Hail Marys. Lastly, I would like to go over how to finish off your rosary. So when you get to a certain point, as you can see here with this rugged rosary, they burn off the ends right there and right there. So what you do is once you got it nice and tight where you want it, and you have the right number of decades and Our Father beads, you'll cut off the strands right here and right here after you tie a barrel knot through both of them. And then you'll take a lighter and you'll be careful just to light the part that you cut off, because sometimes it can discolor the beads, and it also can like singe the paracord and make it discolored as well. So be careful to just try and light only this part and this part. So this is the actual rugged rosary. So this is how they end it as well. They end it between the 2nd and 3rd decades. But I'll show you on one of these ones as well. Yep, this is one I made, and it has it as well. Oops, you can see it singed off on that end right there. Also somewhere in here. Yeah, right there. If anything was unclear, just put it in the comments and I might make another video that's shorter and just goes over the 3 basic knots you need to tie this rosary.